Hi, in this video we're going to look at the sample answer for the part 2 task card that we looked at in last week's video. Now, hopefully looking at this sample answer is going to help you with your own responses to this task card, and it can help you to build up some topic related vocabulary and really notice how we give high level answers for part 2 of the IELTS speaking test. Now, if you haven't seen the video that I put up last week showing how to plan for a part 2 task, then it might be worth having a look at that, because we're going to be following the plan that we made in that video. But basically, we looked at this task card, which is asking us to describe a luxury item that we would like to own in the future. What I did is just went through each of those cues and came up with an idea for each one. And then after that, we thought of some extra vocabulary that we could include when we're expanding on that idea that we wrote down. So all I'm going to do is follow that plan with my full answer, and hopefully it's going to be enough to fill the 2 minutes that the examiner gives us to speak in the test. Now, of course, they say to us, speak for between 1 and 2 minutes, but I always think it's best to just fill that time completely, just so you can show the examiner as much as you can. Of course, you're going to show them more speaking skills the more you speak. So that would be my advice, usually for most students, is to fill that 2 minutes. So that's what we're going to try to do now. So all I'm going to do is read the answer out to you, and as you're listening, try to notice some of the things that I'm doing. Listen carefully, try your best to understand. But of course, after I've finished giving the answer, I'll go through the answer sentence by sentence, just pointing out some useful things to notice and things that might help you to improve your vocabulary, and maybe think about some of the grammar being used or the grammatical features and pronunciation features that, well, they're the reason why this kind of answer that I'm going to show you is going to get a very high band score from an IELTS examiner. So let's get on and look at the full answer. Here we go. I don't really have much interest in owning fancy things, but if I had to choose something I'd like to have, it'd be a mega yacht, as it's the most luxurious item I can think of. It's a thing that's really only owned by super rich billionaires for obvious reasons. This type of yacht would need an insane amount of money to buy and maintain. And for that reason, I can only really fantasize about having one. When you see a mega yacht, you'd be stunned by its size and beauty. They're absolutely humongous. In fact, to qualify as a mega yacht, they have to be over 80 meters long. Having said that, the size is probably not the most impressive feature. Mega yachts have all the facilities you'd expect at a 5-star hotel, like swimming pools, sumptuous suites and cabins, and even a helipad. I think owning a vessel like this would give the owner freedom to go wherever they desire, whenever they want, in an unimaginable level of comfort and privacy. Island hopping, going from one island to another whenever it takes your fancy, would be awesome to do even without a mega yacht. But with one, you could share your adventures with people you love and not be bothered by anyone else. As I mentioned before, This is only really a fantasy, and I could never in my wildest dreams really own one. The astronomical cost of a mega yacht, for one, makes it impossible for someone in my position to get. Plus, I've never really been concerned about appearing rich or owning lavish things. Having said that, you never know what the future holds. Okay, there we go. That's the end of the answer. And you can see there, it's following the plan that we made in the previous video, talking about this mega yacht or super yacht and just describing it in a lot of detail, following the topic card that we were given, going through it cue by cue in that order. I always think that's the best way to do it. You don't have to do it that way, but it keeps you kind of moving forward, and it stops you from repeating yourself. And it's giving you those ideas so you can look down at the topic card, kind of remind yourself of what to say along with your notes, and then continue speaking. Now, hopefully you notice some really good things about this answer. One of the things that is good about this is the amount of adjectives and variety of adjectives that we're using to describe this mega yacht. This is one thing to think about building up before you go into the test, especially for part 2. Remember, part 2 is always going to be asking you to describe something. And in order to give a good description, you need to have a lot of adjectives, along with other things as well. It's not the only thing you need, but it will help impress the examiner if you're using some less common adjectives that other non-native speakers might not be aware of. So hopefully this answer has helped you to build up some of your knowledge of adjectives that relate to this kind of topic. But what we'll do just quickly is go through that answer, and I'll explain what's kind of impressive about the answer that we gave. I don't want to take too long with this, so we'll try and do it quickly, but it will be a good idea just to see why this is a high level answer. So we started off the answer with this first sentence. Looks like quite a long sentence here. And of course, we're mixing up the lengths of sentences within this answer. We've got some simple sentences, some complex sentences. This is all about having a wide range of grammar, something you need to do if you want a high score for grammatical range and accuracy. Now, nothing that amazing about this sentence, but also you can see some nice adjective noun collocations here. Fancy things. Now, of course, the topic card is asking us to talk about a luxury item, but we don't want to be repeating that word too often, so we've got the word fancy. And in this context, fancy as an adjective means kind of luxury or expensive things. Then, of course, well, I go on and say, but if I had to choose something, because of course I've said, well, I don't have much interest in owning these kinds of things, but if I had to choose something I'd like to have, it'd be a mega yacht. And we haven't even finished the sentence there, but notice here as well, we've got a lot of contractions. So rather than separating words like I would, we're combining them and saying I'd. And instead of saying it would be a mega yacht, we've got it'd be a mega yacht. This is good to do in the speaking test. Making these contractions is showing kind of a higher level of fluency, but also showing a higher level of pronunciation skill as well. But it's not always easy to do for non-native speakers. Something that's worth practicing. And then I give a reason why I chose a mega yacht, connecting that with the word as it's the most luxurious item I can think of. Now here we're using the word luxurious. Instead of copying the word luxury, it's showing that we know another form of this word. And that's always something you can do. If you can't think of a synonym, use another form of the same word. So that's the first sentence, just introducing the idea. And then we move on to the next sentence here. It's a thing that's really only owned by super rich billionaires for obvious reasons. So a bit of a shorter sentence here, but of course we're linking it, you can see, with the word it. Well, it is referring to this luxurious item, a mega yacht. So that's all we've done there. Nothing really that impressive there, but of course more adjectives, super and rich. We're using two adjectives to describe these billionaires. And again, the word obvious, well, for obvious reasons. Well, those reasons, of course, is because of the massive cost of a mega yacht. And then we move on to the final sentence that is focused on that first cue. And we've said this type of yacht would need an insane amount of money. Okay, again, linking these sentences by referring to the yacht that we've referred to in the previous two, trying not to repeat ourselves too much. So we said this type of yacht would need an insane amount of money. Again, another adjective, but we're describing the amount of money as insane or crazy or massive. Basically, a lot of money to buy and maintain. And for that reason, you can see here again, I'm linking these ideas, right? I'm even referring to something that we've said earlier on in the same sentence, that reason, which is referring to what we said previously in that same sentence. I can only really fantasize about having one. So yes, it's my fantasy. We're fantasizing, we're imagining that we could own this. Of course, it's not really very realistic. If you remember, this is one of the words that we wrote down in our plan. Then after this, we move on to the second cue, what this item looks like. So we're describing it in a bit. Not into too much detail because we don't have that much time and we want to cover all of the cues. But in this first sentence, we make it clear that we're talking about what it looks like, because we say, when you see a mega yacht, you'd be stunned by its size and beauty. So they're not the longest sentence there, but quite a good one, right? We're making sure it's clearly about the way the yacht looks. And of course, we've said you'd be stunned. So of course, we're imagining something if you did see something like this. And of course, you can notice another contraction there between you and would. We're saying you'd and be stunned, right? It would stun you, but we're using passive voice here. It's quite a good use of different grammar here. You'd be stunned, shocked by its size and beauty. So just bringing focus to that main idea then, and then we're going to go into a bit more detail. In the next sentence, we're describing the size a bit more. They're absolutely humongous. Of course, another contraction you might notice there, they're instead of they are. Absolutely humongous. We've got a nice adverb adjective collocation there. Absolutely humongous. Well, humongous, like we said before, means really big or massive. In fact, to qualify as a mega yacht, they have to be over 80 meters long. Nothing too complex there, but of course, we're just using the idea that we wrote down in the plan. And then we move on and kind of link these sentences by saying, having said that, right? It's kind of like contrasting what you said in the sentence before, and we're referring to it by using the word that. The size is probably not the most impressive feature. So we said it's not just the size that is impressive. Again, another adjective you see there, the word impressive. But of course, the size is just not the most impressive feature. There's things that are more impressive than that. And then in the next sentence, we're going to explain that a bit. Mega yachts have all the facilities you'd expect at a 5-star hotel, like swimming pools, sumptuous suites and cabins, and even a helipad. A nice adjective there to notice, sumptuous. Sumptuous suites and cabins. Now, sumptuous here just means, well, very, very luxurious and expensive looking. And of course, we've got that extra idea at the end of a helipad, a place where a helicopter can land on the yacht. So we've described what this mega yacht looks like a bit, and then it's time to move on to that third cue, why you would like to own this item. And we just explain it. Here in the first sentence, we give the reasons. I think owning a vessel like this, well, notice here we're using the word vessel. We don't want to keep repeating the word yacht. Vessel would be a nice synonym of the word yacht in this context. Well, owning a vessel like this would give the owner freedom to go wherever they desire, whenever they want, in an unimaginable level of comfort and privacy. So again, we're giving the two main reasons here, right? The freedom and comfort. Oh, and also privacy as well. And then we explain that a bit more by explaining the idea of just going from one place to another place very, very easily. And we're using that idea from our plan, island hopping. And we just explain it a little bit, going from one island to another whenever it takes your fancy. Well, this is a nice idiomatic phrase here as well, to take your fancy, or whenever it takes your fancy. And it just means whenever you want to. And we're just using some nice kind of idiomatic vocabulary that is commonly used by native speakers of English. And then would be awesome to do even without a mega yacht. Again, another adjective there, the word awesome. You can see this answer is really just packed full of adjectives that are going to be, well, very descriptive and useful when we're speaking in part 2. But then again, I go on to contrast this as well with, but with one, because we said, well, even without one, island hopping would be great. But with one, of course, here means a mega yacht. You could share your adventures with people you love, because of course, you can invite your friends and family onto the yacht and not be bothered by anyone else. So there we go. I think one of the big reasons billionaires would have these kinds of things is because they have that level of privacy. No one can see them or take photos of them when they're on these big mega yachts. So then that brings us to the final cue, which is explain whether you think you will ever own this item. Of course, we've kind of mentioned that a bit before in the answer to the first cue when I said, well, I can only really fantasize about having one. So I begin the answer to this cue by saying, as I mentioned before. I'm referring to something I said previously in that kind of first idea for the cue. Then we said, this is only really a fantasy. So instead of repeating the word fantasize, we've used the noun form of that word. This is only really a fantasy. Something I could never in my wildest dreams really own one. So we've got there a nice idiomatic phrase, never in my wildest dreams. So basically this means, well, you couldn't even imagine having one because it's so unlikely or pretty much impossible. And then I go on in the next sentence to explain why. And well, it's pretty obvious. The astronomical cost of a mega yacht. Well, this is nice collocation between the adjective astronomical and the noun cost. This is quite common to describe things that are very, very expensive. An astronomical cost. For one, makes it impossible for someone in my position to get. So just explaining there the main reason. And then I want to add more. So I start the next sentence by using the word plus. Plus, I've never really been concerned about appearing rich or owning lavish things. So of course there, just giving another reason why, well, we don't think we're actually ever going to own one because we don't really care about owning one. And again, another nice adjective there, lavish, again, a kind of another adjective that would be a synonym of luxurious, just like we were using the other adjective before to explain something expensive, the word fancy. You can see lots of synonyms like this being used because we don't want to have the repetition of one word too much. So we're showing we have this wide range of vocabulary, and it's this kind of approach you should have to any answer that you give in part 2. But then again, I move on in the final sentence, contrast that a bit, to say, well, having said that, so we're linking, having said that, you never know what the future holds. So maybe it is possible one day to own something like this. Again, a nice idiomatic phrase there. You never know what the future holds. Well, what is going to happen in the future. That's what this phrase means here. But it's a nice one to end the answer on there. And I think it would probably be enough to speak for the full 2 minutes there. And we're fully expanding on each of those 4 cues that we're given on the topic card. So hopefully it's useful there for you to look at this kind of full answer that's giving a really kind of high level response. And hopefully you can think of your own idea to respond to this task card, and some of the vocabulary, some of the sentence styles, the grammar that we're using here could help you with your answers. But really the key is to practice yourselves. Start planning, writing down your key ideas, doing some research, finding out some vocabulary that you can use when you're explaining those ideas, and then practicing. But hopefully this full answer has been helpful for you, and if it has been, then do remember to click the like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any similar videos in the future. Anyway, thanks for watching guys, and see you again in the next video.